If you've been struggling with anxiety and depression and don't know where to turn for mental health support, Hers can help. At forhers.com, you can get access to real medical providers who can prescribe trusted anxiety and depression medications 100% online if they're right for you. To get started, go to forhers.com/Elyse. That's forhers.com/ELYSE. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information.
Here at Lemonada Media, our goal is to make life suck less, and now you can support that mission and look very good doing it. We are so proud to debut our new line of merchandise, from stylish sweatshirts to eco-friendly water bottles. We listened to what you, our audiences, wanted and worked to create a new line of actually cool merchandise that will fit seamlessly into your wardrobes and routines. Be sure to check out our merch store at www.lemonadamedia.com.
Lemonada.
Okay, actually, can you just pretend that you're listening to a fully complete theme song here? I got really in my head, and I tried to make it perfect, and I couldn't. So this is going to be the theme song right here. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Funny 'Cause It's True. I'm Elyse Myers. So have you ever seen the show You on Netflix? It's like a thriller, horror, this like beautiful man being like deeply obsessed with somebody and then like wanting to do anything he possibly can to just like be involved in their life. Have you seen that show? Obviously. Me too. To the point where like I almost couldn't really watch the newest season before talking to this next guest, Penn Badgley, because I just didn't want to have that like fresh on the brain because I knew it would like ruin my conversation with Penn because that's all I would think about. So now that you know, I'm talking about actor and musician Penn Badgley, and I did have to Google the pronunciation of Badgley, and it is in fact Badgley, like a badge. Boom. He also plays Dan Humphrey on Gossip Girl, and while these roles do define his career, they don't really define his personality. Like, Penn Badgley is not really a serial killer for real life, but he is one of the most warm, kind, and down-to-earth people I have ever talked to, and I consider him a friend now, which I just love that I can do that, and you will get a peek of that today in our conversation. Did you know that while he was taking a break from acting, also he was in a band? That's cool. Okay, two things that are funny because they're true. Number one, Penn is in a show called You, like I said, and that is confusing when you're in an audio platform and we just keep saying you, as if I'm saying you. But it is a show. I wish I could like audio insert like quotations because that's how you like talk about a show, but okay. And number two, I went on Penn's podcast First, which he co-hosts with his friend Sophia Nava. And we talked about how I once slipped and fell with my skirt over my head as my middle school crush walked by. So he went into this interview knowing that, which is embarrassing. And, middle school stories really do just like bring people together. Okay, let's get into it.
If you are trying to use the Zoom for any purposes, I'm fine with that. However, it is comical how no matter where I am, I tend to look on these things pretty haggard.
It won't be used. It's too much pressure.
That's it. You should talk to Nava. We're trying to shift to more video content. In fact, we have actively done that. We're about to release a video episode, and it's a whole other order of work.
Well, you are very famous, so it makes sense. People just want to watch you and the guests. Just like stare at your faces as you talk. Is that weird?
I just don't know what. I mean, yeah, it's.
Yeah.
Yes.
You've been famous for a really long time. I feel like this is kind of just normal for you.
Yes, it is. Do you know that meme with? I think it's a dog. It's like a dog with eyes that are off kilter, and it's sitting in a kitchen, sipping coffee, and the kitchen's on fire. And he goes, "This is fine." And I like it because I believe that's the wording. I believe he's not saying, or they are saying, I believe the dog is not saying, I'm fine, or it's okay, or it's fine. What's happening is there's an appraisal of the reality that the kitchen is on fire, and the decision to say, well, this is fun.
So the way that Penn starts to break this meme down, honestly, was like my first hint at the fact that Penn is very insightful and very analytical. And this was not going to be the conversation that I thought it would be, but it would be so much better because I know that Penn is not the characters that he plays on TV, but I was just still very surprised by how like thoughtful he is and how much he thinks just in general. Like, it's really cool and it's really inspiring. And I think this was a shift in my brain right here where I was like, okay, I'm actually going to get this very, very real side of him during this conversation. What I like to believe about the meme is the fire started so slowly that by the time that photo is being captured of him, he's like, I've been in this fire for so long.
Wait, you said
yeah,
photo.
It's a photo in my brain. So it's his photo being taken by who? I don't know. But the fire started so slowly that now he's in flames and he's like, I think this is fine. It's been fine the whole time. We'll see how it goes. It's actually very dark.
Yeah, he's well, I think that's what the meme is actually meant to represent. It is meant to represent how we all feel. I mean, that's why it's funny. It would not be funny if it didn't strike a chord of reality in our minds and our hearts.
I think that this should honestly be the whole episode is just us breaking down memes. Yeah.
Talking about memes.
What does Penn meme?
Oh, that's very good.
I think you guys should absolutely do this as a segment on your podcast. Number 2, I feel like you are a very like analytical person in every way. And it really fascinates me to watch you take something that's very funny and break it down.
And then make it not funny.
No, make it understandable of like, I mean, that's literally this podcast, like Funny Because It's True is like trying to take moments that are funny, but then breaking it down to like, this is not crazy. This is just like real and it happens all the time. But I like the way that you approach things. It's very interesting. Have you always been this way or is this more like later in life?
To be honest, I've been understanding a little bit better why I am this way. Everybody is a really complex mix of nurture and nature, you know. Only in the briefest, most beautiful moments of life do we really glimpse like maybe our true selves, you know, like our essence. And so much else is culture, so much else is nurture. And so what is really me? Am I really that analytical by nature? But I think what I've learned to do is to cope by thinking through things. And I don't love always thinking.
Do you ever have a moment where you can shut your brain off? And if so, how do you do that?
It's a real popular answer these days.
Great.
Through prayer.
I didn't expect that. You could have given me 100 guesses as to where I thought this question was going to go, and I wouldn't have even come close to guessing his answer.
Yeah, it's and I'm serious. It actually, because people talk about meditation a lot and mindfulness. I do that, but that's, to me, meditation without prayer is like an answer without a question. To me, they're dialectical. The relationship is so interconnected, and I don't ever meditate without prayer anymore. Whereas years ago, I used to meditate a lot without any prayer, and so I don't come to it from a broader secular sense. If I'm meditating, there's a purpose to it. It's because I'm asking questions and I'm feeling my heart and trying to relate to that origin, that source of my heart, whatever we want to call that, and I don't know that there's such a thing as the mind shutting off.
Do you think that when you're creative, like when you're praying and you're meditating, do you find that is helpful with your creativity if you can access that part of your brain and quiet all of the unimportant stuff? Like, do you try and tap into that when you're being creative?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like it's a devotional state. It's a devotional orientation, and more, I think that's what I seek in life. That's what I practice. The other thing about prayer, I think, that gets such a bad rap, understandably, is like, what is it without action? It's essentially nothing. It's thoughts, and what are thoughts without action? Creativity is a great way to take it into the realm of action. Acting is a passive state. There's nothing that you have created in it.
That's really interesting.
You didn't write your lines. You didn't buy your clothes. You didn't even hang them up that day. But literally, like, there's so little about acting that is active in the traditional, in that way that people think about it. And all the focus that is put on actors. You know, people watch a movie and they think they want to be an actor. I think largely because they would much rather be many other things than the actor. They might want to score it. They might want to edit it. They might want to be the cinematographer. They might want to direct or write. Everybody is doing so much, and the actor stands there. I stand there, and the only thing I can do is be honest about how I feel as I say things that I've not thought of.
That's really fascinating.
And I actually can't think of anything more passive. I really can't. But then in that, you have to somehow feel your autonomy. Somehow you have to hold on to your agency. And I think you can, but I actually think it's a lot harder than most even actors realize. And I think that's why a lot of actors become the way that they are, which is sort of like petulant children. And what are children but wanting autonomy and not able to get it because of the way they're treated, you know?
Do you think you were like let down by how passive it was? Because you became an actor so young. Like you obviously didn't understand that when you were starting.
I know, yeah. I don't think anybody understands this when they're starting. I don't care how old you are. The only reason I understand this is because of how long I've been doing it. And because I think as a way of coping.
Love that. Do you enjoy how passive it is, or is there other parts?
Well, at its best, it's actually like prayer. At its best, it's both. It's if you can accept how passive you are then sort of like an empty vessel. And that's beautiful. What you are the conduit of this relationship between the writer, really, and the director, I think, and the audience member.
I was just going to say, it sounds like a very beautiful like representation of what acting is. I've never heard anyone explain it that way ever.
Yeah, and I think this is why people are enchanted by actors. They don't realize it, but they're like, they become charmed by this idea of the vessel, but you never actually want the vessel. You want what's inside. You know, you don't want the messenger, you want the message.
So have you ever had the experience of getting lost in a role? Like I'm thinking how sometimes that happens with method actors.
So hot take, I can give you a little hot take and then we can. I think people are kidding themselves when they think they can become someone else. And I think that we've seen enough, manipulation in the name of method acting. I think, the environments in Hollywood and on sets has been historically pretty toxic, and all in the name of getting a performance, but a performance that is no one ever acts that way in real life. Who is like, this all the time. And, it's just not so that, and the idea that we think that's more real, it's just completely subjective.
Okay, so I don't mean to undermine Penn in any way here as he talks about method acting and his thoughts on it, but I naturally hyperfixate so deeply on things that I become my hobbies and it becomes my entire personality. And so I can 100% see myself doing this while acting. If I genuinely went and professionally acted in something, I don't really understand how you could do anything else but method act. Anything else feels like lying to me. So it's very interesting to hear Penn talk about this because I think that my experience might be wildly different and has been wildly different. I don't know. A little bit of me kind of feels like an asshole because I think I would be the person that's like, I'm a method actor, so sorry.
It's not more real. It's more dramatic, actually.
Yeah.
And I think we have largely seen stories of men wallowing in their trauma for the last 100 years. Pretty white men wallowing in their trauma. And what is the world doing but wallowing in the trauma of pretty white men a little too much? February 10th, You will be premiering on Netflix.
I know. I was literally okay, so what's funny is I'm hearing you talk about this and I'm like, how do you do it then?
How do I make peace with what I do?
Yeah.
Well, I guess you're listening to it. I mean, I think it through because I'm not sure, actually, ever, and I don't think I need to be. I don't think anyone is. I think we're lying to ourselves. We feel super, super great about starring in some massive thing that has an apparatus around it. And years ago, I used to resist it a lot more. Now I feel like I'm a witness.
Used to resist the characters or just...
Well, yeah, the characters, the business itself, what people refer to as Hollywood.
So because you did get into acting so young... Is that kind of a normal ebb and flow of being in the business for as long as you've been? Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, again, there's levels to it. There's really levels to it. Because yes, the short answer is just yes. But I think one has to be careful. And I personally am trying to practice these days, like, you can't be cynical or feel despair about the environment you're in. Or a response to feeling despair and feeling cynical should be to practice hope and to become constructive. And so I think that's really what I've been trying to do. And, my podcast is one small drop in that bucket.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Penn tells me why he initially turned down the role of Dan Humphrey in Gossip Girl. We all know that mental health can be messy, and it can be hard sometimes to even get a grasp on how you're feeling. Am I anxious? Am I hungry? Do I need therapy or just a cheeseburger? Everyone's on their own unique journey, and if there is one thing I know, it's that mental health isn't linear. How you feel can change on a weekly, daily, and sometimes even hourly basis, but it's the most important thing to take care of. That's why I'm excited to partner with Calm, the #1 mental wellness app, to give you the tools that improve the way that you feel. If you go to calm.com/Elyse, you'll get a special offer of 40% off a Calm premium subscription, and new content is added every week. Over 100 million people around the world use Calm to sleep better and take care of their minds. Thank you, Calm. For listeners of the show, Calm is offering an exclusive offer of 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/Elyse. Go to calm.com/Elyse for 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library. That's calm.com/Elyse. There's so much coping that we're all expected to do on our own, but it doesn't have to be that way. Sure, we can share mental health tips and strategies like my treadmill desk or my dinner routine, but sometimes that's just not enough. Hers offers access to mental health care that can support you in your day-to-day, including dealing with anxiety and depression. At forhers.com, you can get access to real medical providers who can prescribe trusted anxiety and depression medications 100% online, if they're right for you. If prescribed, get your first month of treatment for only $25. Afterwards, it's $85 a month, or $49 with a 3-month subscription. To get started, go to forhers.com/Elyse. That's forhers.com/ELYSE. Hers makes it so simple. For example, there's no insurance required. It doesn't really get much simpler than that. Get started today at forhers.com/Elyse. That's forhers.com/ELYSE. Offer only available if prescribed. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Subscription required. Additional restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Hearing how analytical you are, like what you love about it, has probably changed so much since you first got into it.
I was starting to reflect on this recently in a therapy session, actually, in a way that was far more fruitful than it's been in a long time. And I was able to sort of remember when I loved it purely as an art form, and then when it became a business. And I think when you were asking me before, like, you were asking me about acting, but in a way I was really responding more about the profession of acting. And that's very different. When you have to make it a living, when it's no longer just this pure experience, there's art and then there's, of course, commerce. So for me, like, I think I was probably about 10 when it began to shift into a less than pure and healthy relationship. Wow. And that's very young. Most people don't get that until they're probably in their 20s.
Were you doing a lot of acting at 10?
I was. Well, I mean, I was starting theater and I was starting to go on auditions. So maybe it was 11, but it was definitely before 12, I think, because by the time I was 12, I had moved to LA and began working and was working regularly and have been working regularly since then. I have been working regularly since I was 12 years old.
So I know that some people hearing this won't know your story, and so you didn't go to school, or you left in what year were you when you left? 6?
I was in the middle of 7th grade.
Okay, and then you guys moved to Hollywood, right?
Yeah, we moved to North Hollywood. Yeah. Was
it your whole family? Like, was it your decision? Was it your family's decision?
It was my mom and me. It was a sort of a joint decision because they were separating. I mean, again, I wanted to get out of the place that we were because it was a bit sad and or more than a bit, but it was, and I think, again, driven by a true love of an art form.
Yeah.
And my mother with good intentions. However, moving to Hollywood at 12 years old, I mean, do I need to say anything else? Anybody who's young and listening to this, or even if you're not that young and you're just creative and want to express yourself, the truth is the arts themselves belong to all of us, and they are empowering in that way. But the second you convert it into something that has to be monetized, and then you the power center of Hollywood, it just completely changes the whole thing. It completely changes the whole thing.
I know it isn't like a one-to-one comparison because I'm not like an actor, but the idea of like monetizing something that you love for sure changes how you like approach your creativity. I find that when the pressure of making money, especially like to be funny, if you have to be funny for money, that rhymes, that's funny. Okay, anyways, it's a lot of pressure and it can ruin it. And it can take things that you love so much and make them something you resent because all of a sudden it's paying your bills and it's for other people and serving other people and you don't get to have full control over it. And I think that for me personally, that's why it's so important to keep some things separate. Like there has to be those things that you love that bring you joy, that are creative, that you aren't using to pay your bills. You have to keep those things sacred and private and unmonetized. Right? I think it's interesting, like, because you said earlier that you're trying to remain hopeful and not cynical and not like jaded within what you're doing, because you are still actively deciding to do it, right? And so how do you stay hopeful? And do you have like a memory of when there was a very clear decision you made where you're like, I will not be cynical about this? Like, is there any moment that you remember of that?
That's a good question. It's not that definitive to me. It's just more like, again, like a more gradual practice. But I guess, no, I mean, look, when I decide to do any job, that's a moment where I'm like, yes, I'll say yes.
Like, what was saying yes to you like?
Well, it was fully, I mean, I was considering whether or not I would continue acting for a number of reasons. I've been vocal about this before. I did initially try to say no. And then through my conversations with Greg and Sarah, the creators of the show, I ultimately came around. Same thing with Gossip Girl, actually. And I conclusively said no. It wasn't even really a halfway. It was like I said no and they moved on. And they came back and kind of sort of pitched me on why I really should be Dan. And at that point, I was 20, and I'd been acting for 10 years, and was already quite tired of television. But I was out of money, which didn't scare me, But I was just sort of like, I don't know if I can do more of this.
Yeah.
And in fact, the creator of Gossip Girl, co-creator Stephanie Savage, had said to me, without getting into the details, she sort of, after I had passed, like I guess the feeling was that they couldn't find.
You were Dan. Like, was she like, you have to be Dan? What did they do?
Well, yeah, basically she was. And he was meant to be, in a way, from my understanding, from my recollection, even contractually, the only male lead. And I think the point of Gossip Girl is that they realized, oh, that's not what this is. That's not, the zeitgeist of this show is not a moral center. The zeitgeist of the show is that it is amoral, not immoral, but it is amoral. It is a fantasy. It's, people say aspirational. I think that's a weird term to use for it.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy where 20-year-olds play teenagers and drink scotch and have sex and are in relationships that are like adult people. That's a complete and total fantasy. It's not real at all. And that's what that show was. And there's many shows before it and after it that tap into that, and people respond to it.
When I was a high schooler watching that, or younger, when I was very young watching that, I was like, this makes sense. And then going back as an adult watching, I'm like,
well, what do you mean when you say this makes sense?
It never crossed my mind that wasn't how high schoolers lived, because I wasn't a high schooler like really watching it. And so I think genuinely it kind of created this idea of like what the normal high school experience should be. And everything I did outside of that was kind of lame. Like,
I agree, but this is what I think the great, and like Gossip Girl is not remotely unique in it. So I'm not like, putting any kind of special burden on, and not at all. It's like more or less every show, more or less every movie is creating this fantasy that makes people feel bad about the fact that they're not living that way. And that's not like all stories are not bad for that. We should tell stories and we should watch beautiful things, and movies and TV shows are not like inherently bad at all. But this weird byproduct of the most materialistic aspect of it is that we try to just cast hotter and hotter people. We create drama that is more and more intense. And in order to stir up visceral feelings, we tell stories that are darker and darker. And so there is I think just a clear byproduct of that, which is that it doesn't actually reflect reality as much as it creates this fantasy experience that is actually like taking a substance.
Did you feel this way when you were filming it? Like what?
Yeah.
Because you didn't ever go to high school. So you're like literally having a high school experience on television at 20, but not a real one.
Yeah. Well, but I had been playing high schoolers. The weird thing is, like, I think I'd been playing high schoolers for 10 years at that point. Or no, 8 years. I mean, so, from 12 to 20, I was playing, like, versions of a middle or high schooler,
Like with Dan, and I don't know why I'm blanking on your character's name and you. What is his name?
Let's just leave it like that. Let's just
I
see
don't
how
know
long
why.
it takes.
I'm Joe. Okay,
It's
got it.
Joe.
Not me forgetting my guest's character's name. As if I haven't obsessively watched the show. Honestly, this worked in my favor right here.
He's meant to be the everyman, or seem like the everyman.
I hope he's not the everyman, but it's all good. So with the idea of like these characters, I know that they are very different in terms of like the outworkings of their behavior, but their feelings seem the same. Like they seem almost like two sides of the same coin. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think also that's the point. I think the point is that in the first episode of the first season, I'm more or less playing Joe like a version of Dan. I mean, I'm not in my mind saying Joe is like Dan. I will play Joe like Dan in the first episode. It's more like these are all the same tropes. It's a sensitive guy who loves books, meeting a girl who's out of his league. And that's how many stories are that way, by the way?
A few.
Like go through literature, go through movies, go through TV. I mean, like how many stories of men in that position have we? It's like a lot, So I think the point is that actually you, my show now, is consciously seeing all of that and deconstructing it, which is really interesting.
It's interesting that you get to use this like, and I know you said that it's a passive situation, but you still are very much involved in like portraying this person. And I feel like because you are so analytical, and I honestly didn't know how much of that was you and your character, but even getting to have like personal conversations with you, like it just was shocking to me how you are very steady and you think about things so much. And like, I do see that in your characters. And so do you ever feel like you are getting to play a part of yourself in these, or is it just a coincidence?
On one level, just yes. And it is also a coincidence. It's a coincidence that I'm playing them. Like they cast me. That's a coincidence. It's not like I'm destined to play this or that. So to me, I don't think you can ever play anybody but yourself. This is what I was saying about method acting before. When somebody says becoming a character, you're not literally becoming someone else. That would be insane. That would be a delusional process where you're making yourself somehow believe you're someone. No. I think all you can ever do is be yourself.
Let's take another break. When we return, Penn talks about his love of music. Have you ever tried putting together furniture for yourself? It can be a humbling experience. What if I told you that you could have gorgeous furniture without the clunky assembly process? Introducing The Bed by Thuma. Handcrafted from eco-friendly, high-quality, upcycled wood, The Bed has a modern, minimalist design that helps elevate any space. The bed is put together using the timeless technique of Japanese joinery. Each piece locks into place, meaning no tools or excess hardware are required for assembly. With clean lines, subtle curves, and lifestyle-enhancing details, the bed is simple sophistication for the bedroom. Made for how you live, The bed by Thuma is backed with a lifetime warranty, ships right to your door in 3 easy-to-maneuver boxes, and takes about 5-ish minutes to assemble with no tools required. Make your bedroom more sleek with The Bed by Thuma. And now go to thuma.co/funny to receive a $25 credit towards your purchase of the bed plus free shipping in the continental US. Go to thuma.co/funny. That's THUMA.co/funny for a $25 credit. I love going to restaurants, but there's just something so much more satisfying about a meal that you cooked. Cooking sometimes means lots of grocery shopping trips and guesswork with brands and long lines at the register, and that's why ButcherBox wants to make you love home cooking again. One of my favorite recommendations to give out is ButcherBox because they send you humanely raised quality meat at a good price right to your doorstep, aka 100% grass-fed beef, free-range organic chicken, and wild-caught seafood. Plus, there's free shipping for the continental US and no surprise fees. And they let you choose from a variety of box plan options, from curated to customized, changing your plan whenever you want. Have I mentioned the exclusive member deals that let you save big on your favorite cuts? ButcherBox is offering our listeners one of their best deals yet, a 100% grass-fed chuck roast and a whole organic chicken free when you join. Plus, an additional $20 off your first box. Sign up today at butcherbox.com/Elyse and use code ELYSE to get a 100% grass-fed chuck roast and a whole chicken free in your first box plus $20 off. That's butcherbox.com/Elyse and use code ELYSE to get this special deal.
You know, the reason I think about this is because I have to do it all the time.
You would be bad at your job if you didn't think about it all the time, I think. It's like very good you think about it.
Yeah, it's a fine line. It's a fine line. Because if I think about this while I'm acting...
Do you just spiral?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, all these stories that you tell on your podcast or any of the other platforms, and that kind of the stories that I tell on my podcast about middle school, like you know, it's the equivalent of spiraling, and you're like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Now, in acting, the fortunate truth is that you know what to do. You have a line. So you say it, but then you're saying it, and it's not believable. And guess what? That's bad acting.
Okay, so fun fact, one of the first times I was ever on a set was with Audible, and I had to act, but I was acting as myself, but also not myself. Like, I was still saying things that I wouldn't say and reading from a script and memorizing lines and, you know, all of that. And I genuinely couldn't get over the fact that I was saying things that weren't naturally coming out of my mouth. And I was so embarrassed, I could not actually be in the moment and successfully play this role. I felt like everyone was staring at me going, she's a liar. Like, the whole point of acting is to act. And what Penn is saying is absolutely correct. I could not release this idea that I was like embarrassed and I couldn't commit. And it makes for really bad acting.
Like, bad acting is just somebody who's too self-conscious in the moment to let themselves be spontaneous. And they're going through the motions and imitating what they've seen before and using their face too much or too little, you know, and that's all bad acting. I think everybody could be a phenomenal actor if there was the right environment, you know.
I'm so curious to know how you compare this acting and music. Like, does music fulfill something in you that acting can't? And is that why you do it? Like, what are those two worlds?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's flattering that you would say I do music. I mean, I don't play anymore the way that I used to, in the sense that I'm certainly not doing it professionally. I'm certainly not doing it and with the pandemic.
But just personally for yourself even? Like...
Yeah, well, so for myself, I mean, I do it all the time. I mean, I sing with my son, my toddler.
It's the best, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just like that. So that's very pure. So in that sense, it's, you know, before when I said like the arts are for everybody, and because of that, they're empowering. Again, it's very spiritual. It's very fulfilling. I sing all the time, and I love it. It's like one of the most important things in my life, and in a way, like I love that form of expression, and I love playing instruments, but I don't get to do it that often.
What instruments do you play?
Guitar and piano. You know, again, smatterings. It's like I can do little bits that sound impressive, but I don't ever play consistently.
I think that for me, so I do music as well, but it's the same where it's like, when we were talking earlier about how as soon as it becomes like a job, you know, you lose the full love of it because you have to start like taking all these other things into consideration when you do it. So for me, music has always been something that I try and protect as much as I possibly can. It is very personal, and like I sing with my son as well, but there are days where they're just absolute garbage, like just the shittiest day. And I have this like phrase where I'm like, I'm just going to sing my way out of this day. And it is one of the only things that for me, like it does feel prayerful. It feels purposeful. It feels peaceful, and it feels like active. It's like this thing that I don't need anything else to like get me to sing because I'm musical, but also I can put a song on and it's the only thing that pushes right past all of the shit and goes like straight to my heart. There's like nothing else that can do that for me, but like music.
Yeah, I fully agree, by the way.
Yeah.
I love the way you react to, you know, because you have these videos of you reacting. I love the way you react to music. Actually, the way you react to music is similar to the way I feel about it. You make similar facial expressions, which is like, feel, no, I really do. Those videos you have.
I was on the bathroom floor.
Yeah, which also, on several levels, it resonated because I was like, you know, with the toddler. And when they're napping, you're like, just please nap as long as you can. You don't want this. I mean, what I do in the middle of the night, I literally am like Spider-Man in our hallway.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have such creaky floorboards in our hallway. I know where the spots are.
Same.
But I have to put my hand on either side. Like I'm literally reaching out.
Like lifting yourself up kind of on the wall.
Yeah. It's like 4:30 in the morning and I am fully engaged in my core. And all the different, and it wakes me up entirely. Like, in fact, it happened this morning and I couldn't get back to sleep.
So when we first had August, I would put Post-it notes on, because I was at home with him more. So I put like Post-it notes on the boards that like you just don't step on.
Like, this is the spot. Wow.
And we both now have come to learn them very well. But yeah, oh my God, it's awful. But yeah. Is there any music for you that if you're like, if I put this on, I go there? Like, is there anything like that for you?
Most recently, the song that does that for me is a song called Mother Sober by Kendrick Lamar, which is a really beautiful case of vulnerability. Very personal storytelling mixed with the unique feeling one has when they're processing grief and trauma and doing it for the first time really soberly, both figuratively and actually. And Beth Gibbons, I think is her name, from Portishead, is singing the chorus. And she's saying, I wish I was somebody, anybody but myself. And it's so beautiful. And it actually gives me shivers thinking about it. And at some point in the song, he even says, it gives me shivers. So to answer your question, rap has always, to me, been the most, it both speaks it explicitly and copiously, you know, because you just get the most amount of words in rap. It speaks explicitly and copiously, but then also so poetically and subtly. I just probably in my life will never be as moved by any medium more than rap music has.
We have to send each other links back and forth because I need to hear what you're listening to, and I'll just send you it. It's going to be very different. 100% went from this interview to listen to the music that he suggested. And I sent him a link to one of my favorite songs ever, Ocean by John Butler. It's his 10-minute version, his acoustic guitar version. Oh my gosh, it's incredible.
My wife and I more than once have cried while driving listening to this song, which is a little bit dangerous, but...
It is dangerous, but we need it. We need a good cry sometimes. I know that we are running out of time, so I will let you go.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Seriously, thank you. We need like a 10-part series of you being on this show. And we do need to do What Does Penn Meme? Thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Penn. And if you're someone who likes to relive the awkward moments of your adolescence frequently, I definitely do, check out Pod Crushed. It's funny, it's insightful, and the three of them together, Sophie, Nava, and Penn, just bring me so much joy. And by the way, if you loved this episode, please rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps. Okay, bye. There's more Funny 'Cause It's True with Lemonada Premium. You'll get access to all of Lemonada's premium content, including My 5 Questions with Moses Storm, which came out last Friday. Subscribe now in Apple Podcasts. Funny 'Cause It's True is a Lemonada Media and Powder Keg production. The show is produced by Claire Jones, Zoe Dennis, Nancy Rosenbaum, and Linnea Tony. Our associate producer is Tiffany Bowie. Rachel Neal is our Senior Director of New Content, and our VP of Weekly Production is Steve Nelson. Executive producers are Stephanie Whittles-Wax, Jessica Cordova-Kramer, Paul Feig, Laura Fisher, Kesla Childers, and me, Elyse Myers. This show is mixed by Johnny Vince Evans, additional help from Noah Smith and Ivan Krayev. Our theme song music was written by me and scored by Xander Singh. Follow Funny 'Cause It's True wherever you get your podcasts, or listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership. Fun fact, Funny 'Cause It's True was one of Amazon's favorite podcasts of 2022. Thank you, Amazon. Boo-doo-doo-doo-boom-doo.
Hey, Lemonada listeners, we want to hear from you. You know we love our sponsors for a ton of reasons, but one of the main ones is that they help us keep the lights on. And there's a really easy way that you can help us draw new advertisers and hear ads for things you're most interested in. Filling out our quick anonymous survey at lemonadamedia.com/survey. By just answering a few questions, you can help us find new brands to connect with and also share feedback about show content you'd like to see across the network. And to sweeten the deal, once you've completed the survey, you can enter for a chance to win a $100 Visa gift card. I promise the survey is short and sweet and will help us play ads you don't want to skip and also keep bringing you content you love. Just go to lemonadamedia.com/survey.
Hey there, I'm Sujin Park.
And I'm Kulap Vilaysack.
Join us for Add to Cart.
Every week we talk about the things we buy
And buy into.
and what they say about who we are.
That's right, like our friend Nicole Byer.
I am a lady who has many tabs open, and they all have carts filled with things.
Got a bajillion tabs full of stuff too? We'll break down what that says about you and us every week. Search for Add to Cart wherever you get your podcasts. You get your podcasts. You get your podcasts. You get your podcasts. You get your podcasts.